he surrounds himself, this president of the United States surrounds himself with people that kiss his ass, and no matter what is that's happening, no matter how bad things are looking, they have to make sure they say how wonderful he is and how he wins on everything. Hey, here's a really good person to do that. His name is Howard Lutnick.
How do you think it went today?
Oh, this is the Super Bowl. This was the Super Bowl of trade, right? Trade, and this was it. The only thing missing was walk on and walk off music and a halftime show. I mean, this was it. And there were fireworks all the time. But think of some of these questions, like Justice Kavanaugh says, imagine a meeting in the Oval Office with the president where, and this was his cross-examination of their lawyer, and he says, you've said he could embargo, he could cut off trade with any country. And their lawyer said, I agree. He goes, imagine telling the president in the Oval Office, sir, you can blow up trade with this country. And he goes, that seems too much. Can I put a tariff on him and do a little less? And they say, no, sir, you can't. And Justice Kavanaugh says, that seems like a very odd donut to me. I mean, how could you let that happen? It just didn't make sense. The justices were on the president's side. You're hearing it here from me. President Trump is going to win this case.
Howard Lutnick wrapped up his used car salesman line and said, you've heard it here first. Maybe it's more like, a game show host. We'll be right back after these messages. You heard it here first. I guarantee it. Donald Trump's going to win this case. This case being probably very important to him. We're going to find out why in a second. Obviously, this case here in front of the Supreme Court, if you guys have not heard, about Trump's tariff power, the tariff power that he's wielding over everybody with this assumption he can do whatever the hell that he wants, which he has been doing because Congress is being led by Republicans that are like, hey, Donald Trump, you can do whatever it is that you want. The problem with Donald Trump saying he can do whatever it is that he wants, but then getting in front of any kind of judges or court is he loses all the time. This is Oregon Attorney General, and he's the one who's a part of going against Donald Trump on this tariff case. And watch how he points out what it is that Donald Trump's people in court, in front of the Supreme Court, were arguing.
My name is Dan Rayfield, Attorney General for the state of Oregon. We're proud to bring this case today. I think there was something that was incredibly important that was said today, and it wasn't said by any of our attorneys. It was said by President Donald Trump, Solicitor General, when he looked Justice Roberts squarely in the eyes and said the American people, not foreign countries, but the American people are going to pay 30 to 80% of these tariffs, and then had the gall to look all of those justices again in the eye and say that these are not taxes on the American people. And they're doing it by abusing an emergency power. And I think that was the conversation that we heard today.
They admitted that American consumers pay 70, 80% of these costs. They always have to admit it in the right circles. They've admitted it in front of us too. Then that's right before they go back to saying, but those importers do. But this is what's keeping these justices from really, doing their normal rubber stamping of anything that Donald Trump wants. Because it's really hard to, when people hear these arguments and they go, man, this is going to make us look bad.
The vehicle is imposition of taxes on Americans, and that has always been the core power of Congress. If a tariff is imposed on automobiles, who pays them?
Can you point to any other place in the code or any other time in history where that phrase, together regulate importation, has been used to confer tariff-imposing authority?
Congress, as a practical matter, can't get this power back once it's handed it over to the president. It's a one-way ratchet toward the gradual but continual accretion of power in the executive branch and away from the people's elected representatives.
It seems like he's not doing all that well in this. It's, if this many guys are talking about how it's not looking too good for him, and then, Howard Lutnick is the only one who's saying, believe me, guarantee, just give me $1,000 and I guarantee you that things will go great for Donald Trump. He's going to win this case. If you look what Donald Trump posted, you might not think it's going so well for him. This is what he said. The U.S. Supreme Court was given the wrong numbers. The unwind in the event of a negative decision on tariffs would be including investments made to be made in return of funds in excess of $3 trillion. It would not be possible to ever make up for that kind of a drubbing. That would truly become an insurmountable national security event and devastating to the future of our country, possibly non-sustainable. Donald Trump just, I believe, accidentally admitted that we can't take this. I've got all this money that I said I'm taking in. I've got investments of $22 trillion. Remember how the number keeps jumping? 8 trillion to 10 to 17 to 21 to 25 to 100 gazillion. all this money that he says he's bringing in, all the money that's being paid by all of these folks who are importing goods into the United States, which none of that is happening. He's basically pleading, yo, you guys can't overturn this. You guys can't take it away. You guys can't make me pay it back because I already fucking spent it, because I'm a drunk asshole who takes people's money and spends it. Donald Trump has never paid his debts. Donald Trump has never paid people that do work for him. Remember that Canadian ad that featured Ronald Reagan that he went into an uproar about because all they did was quote and show Ronald Reagan talking about how against tariffs he is. And he was worried that that would change the narrative. He was worried not about, people. He was worried about the Supreme Court. And I was like, why is he only thinking about the Supreme Court? It's because he might lose this case and he'll be exposed for spending all of our money.
And I'm satisfied with the deal we have. We have a deal right now that's very good for us, and any deal that would have been made would have been better for them than the one they have right now. That's why I was surprised they did this. They did this to try and influence the Supreme Court, and many foreign countries aren't particularly happy, but they took advantage of us for years. For years and years they took advantage, and presidents shouldn't have allowed that to happen, but they did.
Canada's been taking advantage of us, and they were trying to influence the Supreme Court. How is it that, just not even Canada, Ontario, the province, they're the ones who put forward that ad that Donald Trump went mad about and then had the Reagan people say that that's not what Ronald Reagan said, and they linked us to exactly what it is that Ronald Reagan said, which is what was in that ad. He also posted about it. You guys remember this too. This is from the time as well too. He said, Canada cheated and got caught. They fraudulently took a big buy ad saying that Ronald Reagan did not like tariffs when actually he loved tariffs for our country and its national security. Canada is trying to illegally influence the United States Supreme Court in one of the most important rulings in the history of our country. The only reason Donald Trump thinks that that's one of the most important rulings in the history of our country is because he'd be tied up in that madness. He'd be tied up in having to pay back what it is that seems, I don't know this, but the way he was freaking out and posting about how this would be devastating to our country. I'm going to look at it again. He said, it will truly become an insurmountable national security event and devastating to the future of our country, possibly non-sustainable. That's destructive type of language. If you're taking in all this money, if you got $27 trillion coming in, why would that be so destructive for you to pay back to these businesses that had to pay extra tariffs? Because I was wondering, I said, is this really how it would happen? Here's details of how that payback would go down. Justice Amy Coney Barrett said repaying the billions of dollars in tariffs the U.S. has collected since they took effect earlier this year would be messy. She used the term messy. Neil Katyal, the lawyer representing a group of small businesses challenging these tariffs, conceded that repaying the duties would be a very complicated thing. Here's some details from some of the people who have companies that were affected. Rick Muscat, who's the CEO of Deer Stags, which is a third-generation family-run shoe company, told CNBC, I beg to differ with the concern over the repaying tariffs as being a mess. He disagrees. On every customs entry, we detail specific line items that indicate the duty and tariff rates that we are paying, is what he said. On customs entry summaries, importers identify the specific product code, country of origin, and type of tariffs being paid. It should be pretty easy. All of it's already labeled. All of it's already been shown as the differences. This is where the problem then lands for them. So Green Bar Distillery, a small business that bottles cocktails and liquors in LA, has paid more than $50,000 in additional tariffs, or 10% of the company's profits. That's under Trump's policies. In terms of getting the tariff money back, logistically, technically, and theoretically, it should be easy because they're all clearly marked in line item, as that last guy pointed out. Practically, though, I don't know, is what this owner says. This administration has been very creative in finding ways to do whatever they like doing with tariffs. In other words, it should be easy to pay it back if you have it. It should be easy to pay it back once we identify how much you owe me. But normally, when people who are unethical and don't have any money of their own, and then just ask you to hand them a couple dollars, like Donald Trump keeps doing, and then they spend it on ballrooms and who knows whatever else. What happens then is they don't have the money to pay you back when you're like, "Where's my money?" So while all that's happening, this is how he's responding to what he knows about tariffs. This is the reasons why we're in the situation that we're in.
President Xi was willing to do the rare earth thing, that's magnets. Now, nobody knows what a magnet is. If you don't have a magnet, you don't make a car. You don't make a computer. You don't make televisions and radios and all the other things. You don't make anything. It's a 30-year effort to monopolize a very important thing. Now, within 2 years, we'll have magnets, all the magnets we want, but we don't. Because of tariffs, I called. I said, listen, here's the story. You're going to play the magnet. I'm going to play the tariff on you. And for national security purposes, I raised the tariff by 100% over and above what they were paying, which was 55. So he was at 155%. Within 10 minutes, I got a call. We'd like to meet. And we settled it out. And we made a wonderful deal, great deal for our country.
Nobody knows about Nobody knows what a magnet is, except for the guy who doesn't know the 30-year mortgage, about 30-year mortgages. Only he knows about magnets. Only he knows about tariffs. Somebody at some point has to ask him, yo, do you know what the fuck you're talking about? Because it doesn't sound like you know anything that you're talking about. I can't wait to see what this ruling is going to be. And honestly, I'm not very optimistic about where this ruling from the Supreme Court will be. Mike Johnson also, he's pretty optimistic that it's going to go in Donald Trump's way too, because they know they've already got the Supreme Court bought. Here's Mike Johnson, Donald Trump's ass, talking about it.
A number of the justices, including conservative ones, Justice Gorsuch and others, raising questions to the Trump administration about the tariffs, and specifically asked at one point whether there were any guardrails that would prevent Congress from, quote, just abdicating all responsibility to regulate foreign commerce, for that matter, declare war to the president, effectively asking whether the president has too much power and whether Congress is effectively abdicating its power in this context.
Yes. Look, I followed it as much as I could in a busy day yesterday. That was what I used to do. I was a constitutional law litigator. I had lots of those oral arguments. I would not read too much into the justices' questions. I mean, that's kind of part of the process. It's to be expected. The vigorous judicial review is what you expect at the Supreme Court, and so they ask probing questions, and it's almost never indicative of how they'll come out in the end.
So Mike Johnson's not worried. Mike Johnson not confirmed that they're wondering about this power grab that Donald Trump wants to continue to have. A power grab that, as everyone except for, I guess, Mike Johnson knows, would also envelop more of congressional power that he's supposed to be a part of protecting and wielding themselves. Like, they have a job to do. Mike Johnson knows that his job is to kiss Donald Trump's ass.
I'm cheering for the president that the executive will win on this. Now, I say that as a jealous guardian of the legislative branch of government, Article 1. There's a reason we're listed first in the Constitution. This is supposed to be the place of greatest importance. We're the ones that are supposed to make the law and the policy. But we do give the executive traditionally a lot of leeway, a lot of discretion over international trade. And we had a serious problem in this country for decades. As you all know, and you've discussed many times, we had a big trade disparity. The president stepped in. I think he's used that authority appropriately. He's obviously created a lot of leverage for our trade strategy internationally, and it's yielded great results. And so I'm watching that carefully because I'm the guardian of the Article 1 branch of government. But I think he's well within the lines, and I hope that a majority of the justices agree, because if they reverse all this, it would really be chaos in the markets and in the economy. It'd be a real problem for the country.
Isn't it bad that if this decision gets reversed by the Supreme Court, it'd be very bad for the country? It'd be devastating to the markets and everything. It sounds like chaos. It sounds like a plan that it can be deemed illegal. And after it's deemed illegal, it's destructive. Isn't that a bad place to be? Isn't that something that you would criticize the guy who got you in that place for being? But instead, Mike Johnson is cheerleading for Donald Trump. He said it a couple times. I'm cheering. I'm rooting for him. I hope he wins. But I'm this jealous guardian of congressional power. Just because you say jealous guardian and you think that's some kind of artistic way of saying that you actually care about the powers that you keep giving away to Donald Trump, it doesn't make it reality. I'm a jealous guardian. But at the same time, I'm cheerleading the guy who wants to take the power away from this body.